Welcome to Insights in Touch, the podcast where industry insight meets meaningful conversation. Hosted by Kristin Thorne, this series, presented by iFraud Foundation, explores the real issues facing the property and casualty insurance world. It's the pulse of an industry under pressure and the voices working to protect its future. Stay informed, stay connected, stay in touch. Now, here's your host, Kristin Thorne.
All right, joining us today for, I know it's going to be a great discussion, CEO of Marcor Construction, Gina Marcor. First of all, let me say I'm so thrilled to have a women-owned construction company owner here on this podcast. That's very exciting. I know how hard that is. And Gina, you also sit on the Nassau and Suffolk Consumer Affairs boards, which is really important as we kind of frame this conversation today. So look, Gina, I know there's a lot that's keeping you up at night, and I don't blame you. We kind of did a little pre-talk, and I think we're going to start first with talking about workers' comp fraud. What you see kind of going on in the industry, how is this affecting you as a business owner who is doing the right thing?
It's frustrating to say the least because, there's so many checks and balances today with technology and with the ability to prove financials. And, we're not working out of little black books anymore. We don't have handwritten bank ledgers. Everything is done for the most part on a computer. And there's ways to find where fraud is happening. And it's just that whether there's just not enough manpower or what, it's very frustrating when you're running a legitimate business to see that you're up against a competitor that is not working on a level playing field. And when I say not working on a level playing field, committing illegal acts that are hurting constituents and homeowners and taxpayers, but also are hurting the rest of the good players out there. So for example, let's say, let's start with the workers' comp side of things, right? So let's say I have 10 employees and I'm working on a prevailing wage project commercially, right? I have to send certified payroll. When you get a workers' comp audit, that audit is based off your payroll records. And okay, employees A, B, and C are at this rate because this is their role. And employees, X, Y, and Z are this rate because they're at this role, right? And they get rated off of that. What's happening is that for starters, we have seen it. I know Nassau County Consumer Affairs has been doing an amazing job at tracking down and flipping things over to the Investigator General's office of seeing false workers' comp certificates. And so people might say I'm licensed and insured, but that does not necessarily mean they are. So that's only one conversation. Are they actually actively insured or not? And do they have the right insurance for the project that you're hiring them for? And homeowners think that they are protected by the law. And if there's any way of them directing the work, or maybe they're a house flipper, or they're a general contractor, or they're GCing a project themselves, or maybe they have a for-profit business out of that property, they are not protected by the single or two-family exemption of the scaffold law. But let's talk about workers' comp fraud and how to really find it on the resi side. Is that I'm not certifying payrolls.
In resi, you mean residential?
Residential, right? Yes.
The lingo.
Yeah. So let's say now I own a company and you own a company. And in this situation, you're going to be the bad contractor. Okay.
Oh,
so
would never happen. But go ahead.
Well, we're not going to make me one because
that's true.
I do it right. But
good point.
So let's say I have those 15 employees, and there's even ways to link your payroll when you file your payroll to your workers' comp in many cases. And it's called, I believe it's called Insure Pay. And every time I run payroll, it'll tell me, okay, here's your workers' comp is for the week. Now, what happens is that on consumer affairs side, we were starting to see, especially in Nassau County, which, they're looking at false certificates for workers' comp, false certificates for liability insurance. And you can actually type in whatever you want into a certificate. They're editable.
Oh, okay. So I want to make sure I understand. You're saying these certificates have been completely doctored.
Yes. And I've seen photoshopped ones. I have seen, there's actually now on a workers' comp certificate, a QR code that anybody, a homeowner, a consumer affairs, a general contractor, they can scan it and see if it's active. Or if it's tied to that company. So that's important. But now when you start to see these workers' comp certificates that are not accurate, that's just one part of it. So let's say you have a company that's doing $3 million a year in sales. but they're showing $7,000 a year in payroll. Well, that's a huge red flag. Then either you're subcontracting work, which means your subcontractor number should be higher, because we know nobody can perform $3 million worth of work paying out $7,000 in payroll without a subcontractor. So this needs to be looked at a lot closer and not let them doctor the numbers, because what's happening in a lot of these cases is that contractors are now, on the residential side, a lot of the times are taking these checks. You write a homeowner writes a check to a contractor, and they write a $15,000 check or a $20,000 check. They can take those checks to a check cashing place, which there's plenty of case studies here and documentation right on Long Island of people who've gone away for this, because you're taking that money, you're deviating it from the workers' comp, because now you're taking it to a check cashing place, you're paying a couple of percentage, you're getting the cash in return now you're paying your labor cash, you're maybe putting guys here and there on payroll for a couple of bucks or maybe one day and they work 5 or 6. Now, all of a sudden you say, okay, no, that guy was working for me the day he got hurt, but you're not paying all year round the true premiums of what that is. So now that's helping, it's hurting everybody else in that realm of, hey, workers' comp, we all put money into this as companies. But when somebody has to pay out, you're paying out a claim that could be $1 million or $2 million or $500,000 claim, depending on what the injuries are. And these people are getting hurt. And as we see on the Stage Accident Coalition and with iFraud, all of the injuries, nobody's looking into the injuries right now on the residential side. Those injuries, a spinal fusion is the same thing as a spinal fusion is on the commercial side.
So these companies are essentially going into the pot of money when they haven't contributed to it.
Correct. So, and that's what happens now is then that the companies start to get to a point where they could potentially lose workers' comp. But now you have the doctors, and we have multiple cases right now where the doctors are really pushing to keep guys out on comp. I've had the guys that are actually injured the worst, and like they're not OSHA related injuries. It was, God forbid, we had a guy that cut his hand open and, it severed a ligament. He was my first one back to work. He was begging to come back to work. So we repositioned him into a position where he wasn't doing manual labor anymore. He was running projects and he wanted to come back to work. We worked together. And that's the goal of an employee-employer relationship. But the ones that have the minimal injuries or the ones that are going to the wrong doctors are the ones getting pushed for spinal fusions, are repeat surgeries, or keeping them out for minor injuries as long as they possibly can, which is causing us as business owners increased fees, because now we have to hire private investigators and follow these guys. We're losing our dividends, we're losing our discounts, and we're the ones actually paying into it. So it's like when my workers' comp comes to me and they say, well, we have a situation, your experience modification goes up, which is like your rating with your workers' comp. We need that to bid on projects. People will ask us, where's your experience mod? And they want to see it as a certain number because it means that you're working safe. But these false claims, none of them, the first thing when my safety group came in, they said, we need to go through all these accidents. Not one was OSHA related.
Gina, you're just getting hit from like all angles. You've got the staged accidents, you've got these rings of some attorneys and doctors, you've got this workers' comp issue, wage theft. I guess your message is, what do you want, the contractors out there who are not playing by the rules? What would you like them to know?
There should be some, they should either play by the rules or you don't follow laws and regulations. We're talking about, I could say that anybody watching this or listening to this is going to say that they don't want their taxes to go up. They're part of the problem. When you hire the company that is a truck out of the truck or a Pete off a pickup, you have to realize that most of the time those guys are not paying legitimate labor. When they don't pay legitimate labor or they're washing money or you're paying a contractor cash, chances are they're not showing that cash. And especially if they're pushing for cash, right? So if they're not pushing, if they're not showing the cash, liability insurance is now not getting paid. Workers' comp is not getting paid. But guess what else is not getting paid? Payroll taxes, unemployment, disability, Social Security. Their taxes, both state and federal, they're not showing that money. So where is all of that? You have tax evasion on both the company paying, they're not paying the payroll tax on unemployment, disability, but also the employee is now not paying their fair share into taxes. And guess what? When the tax shortage comes, who's paying? you, me, and the other legitimate people out there. And they want to tax us at a higher rate because we're doing things the right way and showing it. And these guys end up getting to bury it. And there's minimal to, there's little to no penalties for them. Yes, people have gotten in trouble for it. I know a handful of guys that have gone away for it. There was one very big investigation that a guy actually, and this is no exaggeration, the armored trucks would show up to his job site with stacks of money, and he would cash, six-figure checks at a time, and they wouldn't have enough money at the check cash place. They'd bring it to him.
So
There's a problem here.
what can homeowners do? You have a contractor come to your house. I have one right now. I paid him in a check, and he was pretty adamant about that, there was a discussion of cash, and he's like, no, I really want the check. He's very by the book. And I know he's not going doing this check
Yeah.
cashing stuff. So, what is your message to homeowners? What can they do to help this problem?
So when people ask to get paid in cash, that's you're catering into part of the issue, because that means, I mean, and even if you pay them in a check, that doesn't mean they're not taking it to a check cashing place and losing it, and losing the check and not having, as much documentation of it. We still can't really wrap our heads around why this hasn't been cracked down on. Years ago it was, and then it was allowed, that people were now cashing checks. So, I think the story would be, be a little weary when people want to negotiate with cash, because usually it means that they're dodging workers' comp, or they're dodging liability insurance, they're dodging some sort of expense. That doesn't mean, the problem is that the homeowner, and I've had this conversation with homeowners before, the homeowner's not directly affected. So it's like, what does it matter to me if you're paying your guy's cash or not? Like, or if he's paying the guy's cash or not. And it does matter, because if you don't want to be paying more taxes down the road, you're part of the problem now, because you're catering into it because you want a better price. And I understand that's just America and everybody wants a better price, but you can't get off the ride and then want the lollipop and the balloon and then the ice cream as well. Like,
Darn.
you gotta pick something.
I love that metaphor. That's really great. And I think, look, we all love to complain about how high our taxes are, but here is something we can do. It would take a lot of us, everybody kind of has to understand that we're all in this together. But I tell people all the time, what is one of the main reasons you think it's so expensive to live in New York? It's because of fraud. It's just systemic. It's in every single part of our lives. And
Yeah.
we all have to understand that, yes, you may not see it day in and day out how it affects you, but I promise you, it is affecting you every single day. It's the silent tax, as they call it.
It is. I mean, and even from a business owner's aspect. So now we're working against workers' comp fraud. We're working on liability insurance fraud, that, insurance brokers are writing policies that they're writing a tile policy for a roofing contractor. They're writing, a construction maintenance policy for a siding contractor. They're writing a painting policy for a gutter contractor. Those aren't giving you the proper coverages. So when I look and I go, and I work with, DocuTrax and other third parties because I believe in what they do. And I'm like, guys, can you review this policy? They're touching solar panels and they don't even have electrical coverage. They don't even have coverage to be on the roof. And now something happens and that person gets injured or hurt. Where does that leave the homeowner? And everyone thinks, oh, I'm okay and I have homeowners insurance. There's limitations there. It's not stopping you from a lawsuit. You could sue anybody for anything. So, and there could be some liability there depending on certain circumstances.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, if people want to, we've heard these stories of people. Well, we've heard all this criminals. I mean, I'm going a little a tangent here, but people who break into people's homes, steal a whole bunch of things and get injured in the process and then up suing the homeowner. I mean, these things happen. And so what do you think homeowners can do to protect themselves? Because if people really want to get your money and they're in it for it, they will figure out how to sue you. So how do homeowners, can you ask for an insurance policy? Like what is,
Absolutely. So the biggest misconception in the industry, and I even have this conversation with builders, developers, and people who are very seasoned with this stuff. A certificate of insurance is not enough. It's not going to show you everything that you need, and I don't know if it would be helpful for me to be able to show you,
sure.
a redacted one.
Yeah.
But I want to show you really what these issues are that we're experiencing, and I'm going to show you what
Yeah, let's do it.
if you ask for a certificate of insurance and you get one, guess what? I'm gonna pull these up.
What does this mean in terms of fraud? How does this all, affect each other?
Well, I have the guy's policy here, and I know he's paying $5,000 a year for this policy. I know a legitimate policy to work on Long Island, a minimum earned premium is $30,000. So I could see straight from what they're, a lot of the times they'll send over redacteds when I do insurance reviews for other companies. Because this site, I don't subcontract really much of my work at all. So I just know this because I'm a sub for people and I know what I need. So then I come in and somebody's 25% cheaper, which is like a ridiculous swing. I'm like, okay, well then either you did you steal the material? What are you doing? Like, how did you get to this number? Because at the end of the day, you're talking about proper insurance could add somewhere between 8 to 12% on a residential project just for the liability aspect alone. You
I
know,
think the message is for companies watching this, homeowners, in terms of the fraud, and because it's so systemic and people are looking to make a quick buck off people, whether it's companies or individuals, you saw all those exclusions there. And so we are all in a way could fall victim to this because you
100%.
may think you're protected. There's no way this fraud is going to happen to you. You've got everything in place, and then lo and behold, you really go in your policy and you are essentially functionally uninsured.
Correct.
It's very scary.
So it's beyond scary because do you know how many times I sit and have conversations and we'll talk about insurance and I preach insurance and people like they're licensed and insured. They set it on their truck. They even went to Consumer Affairs. It said that they're licensed and insured, but they can change that policy at any time. And Consumer Affairs is only one department that can only review a form and an endorsement that you gave them. So if you're giving them false information and they can't find it, it really puts everybody in a predicament because how are you supposed to know if it's being done right or wrong? But the reality is, the conversations I have with Consumer Affairs is like, well, why aren't we seeing this? Why are you not seeing this? Because it's turning into a lawsuit. Those won't go to you. The complaint with the customer is going to go to you, but the injury, the exclusion of bodily injury or the fall from a height, that's not going to be on Consumer Affairs' radar, nor should it be. That's not their fault. This is homeowners have a due diligence, but we're looking at something right now that I did this for a company based out of another state that runs contractors in 48 states. So you're talking about I do an insurance review for a solar company that's been, and this is one of 13 of them that we work for. This is just the first one I got to perk up and realize that your contractors are not properly insured. These are people who do this for a living. What about a homeowner like yourself who doesn't do this for a living? You don't know to ask that. You're like, no, he said he's licensed and insured. You don't know to double
Gina,
check
I
it.
had no idea till this conversation.
It was
Now
very
I'm
funny
about to
because
call my contractor.
until Damien and I had the conversation, he was like, oh my God, I never even thought of it. When I tell you, I tell my husband, because like it's very hard to tell whether somebody, is giving you the right stuff or not. I make everyone list me additional insured when they work on my property. I want full policies. I have access to do policy reviews. But even like down to when my Christmas lights get hung, I tell my husband, go somewhere, go get coffee, get out of the house, because there's no way for anyone to say you were home and potentially directing that work. So
Oh
at
my
least we're
gosh, I
removed
didn't
from
think
it.
of that. And by the way, Damian Caldwell, just in case people don't know, is the head of iFraud, the mastermind of this entire podcast as well, who's made it his mission to fight fraud. Gina, I didn't even think about that either. I mean, there's just all these. I bet, and here's the other thing. I bet if you're the type of homeowner or company that just when you start asking these questions, people, the bad ones, they're just going to go away. You would hope because they're
You're
going to
talking the bad homeowners or the bad contractors.
know the bad contractors. I mean, I would think that if you're a really
Yes.
knowledgeable
But you
person,
don't, the problem is I'm doing this going on 18 years. Do you know how many times I've had a homeowner ask me about what my experience modification rating was? One. And the experience modification, it's unfortunate because your experience modification isn't even accurate because you've got false comp claims, people getting forced to get surgeries and stay out of work longer than they ever should. And you're exposing it. But what happens is, I mean, we had the workers' comp following, not my choice, workers' comp, not New York State Insurance Fund chose to follow one of my employees for 2 years. He knew he was being followed. He moved. He got evicted from his apartment. He moved his entire family. He had every time he realized he was being followed by a private investigator, not that I hired, but NICIF hired, he would blow red lights to the point where he'd do anything he could do to lose them. Except where did we find him? We found him out on his motorcycle one day. And I'm paying for that workers' comp claim. And it's expecting my experience modification, and it's costing my company more money. I had another one who has been cleared to come back to work since the end of January. That it was already way too long. All he did was pick something up. So it said he pulled a muscle. That was back in April. It's almost April again of the following year. And he's been told, I reached out to him, hey, can you come back to work? Like we got the clearance from comp, and he goes, no, PT said I can't lift anything for 15 to 20 pounds. I'm like, well, that's part of your role. But workers' comp said you're clear, and so did your doctor. So you just abandon at this point, he hasn't called back. You now abandon your job. But it's becoming very complicated. I mean, and then we're not even getting into the commercial auto insurance.
Oh, forget it. Let's not even, we'll be on for another hour. We're going to be talking about that.
It does affect construction, because you want to make sure as a homeowner that you're asking for proof of commercial auto, because many people don't know this. If I have a dump truck on site, okay, and I'm loading debris into a dump truck, and a guy falls off the ladder as he's loading the truck, do you think that would fall under your liability insurance, your workers' comp, or your auto?
I don't know.
It actually falls under commercial auto. What if they don't have good limits there?
Right.
If they're loading and unloading a truck, it actually is now pushing to your commercial auto in many cases.
Oh my gosh.
And the false claims there, I need advice to contractors or people working telectronics, spend the money, put it in your truck. We have two
Meaning
claims.
cameras.
Cameras, yes. We have had two situations. One we actually just had 3 days ago. Guy claims that we hit him, and one of my guys backed into him and actually hurt him. Found out that we had, a 7-figure, policy. Went to a lawyer, and the lawyer ended up saying that, going after our insurance company. Yet we have it all in the teletronics. Exactly. He didn't get hit. He walked around to the side. He was fine. Everything was on video. We had another one where a customer ran our guys off the road. Somebody ran our guys off the road, and she called us the second she had the number on the truck. She called us and she said, "You guys ran me off the road. I'm suing you guys. I had the teletronics." She clearly hit them, but it's adding such an administrative expense to these things.
Now, Gina, let me ask you, if your insurance company comes back and says, because I hear this, you tell them, we've got the video, this didn't happen, and they go, well, we're still going to settle. Will you fight? Will you continue to fight, or what will you do?
So great question. I had one where a guy wasn't even on a job site, claims he fell 9 feet, not that he broke his back and his leg. For 10 days, he didn't go to get checked out, because case in point, he was working on another job when he actually got hurt, but I was the last job he was probably working on. He was working probably on the side and said, "Oh, I worked for Gina 10 days ago." So he files a claim, gets a massive payout over $200,000. And the answer from my insurance company was it was cheaper to settle than it was to fight it.
How do you react to that?
I mean, you're stuck as a business owner. But the unfortunate part is the false claims. Those premiums now, it makes my premiums go up. They're not even legitimate claims. And now who pays for that? The homeowner. But this is not me. This is everybody facing this. And if you talk to the guys, I mean, I got one of them texting me right now. He wants me to help him on a project. When I've had these conversations with him about him not having the right insurance and him not filing the comp the right way, you know what their answers are to me? We'll stick him on payroll for the day. You put him on payroll for the day, you haven't been paying your part. Right. So really the solutions here are, crackdowns on the check cashing places, third-party insurance verifications from some government entities, somebody policing the insurance industry, not allowing people to write subpar insurances. put some ownership on these insurance brokers that are writing these bare minimum policies, giving the exposures. Because a lot of the times these contractors don't even realize that they have the exposures. Want to know how I know that? Because I had the exposure and I had a guy get injured on a job site and I had a roofing only exclusion because when I was shopping my insurance, they wanted to show me the lower premium. This is 15 years ago. But at the end of the day, I didn't know what I was looking at. I wasn't as educated as I am right now. So how do you know when you're starting out a business? How do you know how something's going to get tendered? You don't know until you are there. So
Gina, any closing thoughts for people? Anything you want to leave people with about what you're going through as a construction owner on Long Island, about the fraud, anything at all?
do your homework, make sure people are licensed and insured, make sure they're properly insured, because at the end of the day, people don't realize it until it's too late. And it's like hey, it's not a big deal until it's a big deal. It's not if, it's when. Things happen all of the time. And you just do not want to be that person.
Gina Marcor, CEO of Marcor Construction. Thank you so much for coming
You're
on.
very welcome. Thank you
And
so
I
much for having me.
wish you all the best. Keep it up.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.